started like not shaving, my boyfriend still brings up this moment every now and then because it was like a really cool moment for both of us. I was like in the process of like my confidence growing from it, honestly. And we went to a coffee shop and I just leaned back and went like this in front of everybody. And he said that my face was like so lit up, like I looked so happy and so free. Like it was like the moment that like I guess we both realized that like I had broken the fear of that particular thing.
That's
and like
so
I felt
awesome.
so free from like what people thought. Because I was just showing it off to everybody and I didn't care.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a process, but it didn't take as long as you'd think. Like,
Just owning
like
you.
I never thought that would happen. I never thought I would even want to make it happen. Because, like, in our society, shaving is so normal for women.
So feel me when I bring it, sing it loud. I'm from the loot and I'm proud. Run a mile for the cause. I'm right.
Guys, it's your girl Nechama, your favorite Jew from the Lou. Welcome back to my podcast. And today I'm so excited and honored to have Nikki Serenity with me.
Hi!
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Really honestly, from the get-go, again, you were one of those guests that reached out to me. And I was so honored. And what's so funny is you beat John to the punch because he actually messaged me. He was like, I was going to make the introduction.
He told me that. I went into BioFit after that. I was like, hey, guess what podcast I'm going to be on? Or guess who I just met with? Because I think I went there to work out like the same day or something.
You did.
Yeah, and I was like, he was like, I think he guessed. And I'm like, no, Drew from the Lou. He's like, I was going to introduce you guys.
Yeah, that's so funny.
I was like, actually, I found her through you because I'm like their influencer now. So I try to get, thank you. I try to get people to go into BioFit and do a demo and hopefully sign up for a membership. So I was like creeping on his social media to like just kind of get a feel for what they're doing and stuff. And
yeah,
I found his clip from yours and I was like, that seems like a really nice podcast. Maybe I want to be on that.
Yeah, and honestly, this is such a good like say to everyone who's listening that like if you're listening and you want to be on, literally just DM me because
it works for me.
It works. I'll make it happen. And what was so exciting about John's episode too is that apparently someone watched our episode and then signed up to go to BioFit.
I think he was there. I don't remember if it was that day, but one of the times I was there to work out, he said something to him like, "Oh, she's gonna be on Jew from the Lou," and he was like, "Oh, that's like a friend of mine or something." I was like, "What the heck? Everybody here knows each other."
It's
but
so
like
true.
I like it. Like
the Jewish community, especially in St. Louis, is pretty like tight knit.
Nice.
So yeah,
that's awesome.
It is really awesome. Honestly, he should be on my podcast.
Yeah, why not?
He's a lawyer. He's super busy though, so I'm not sure he would have the time. But it's always
that makes
worth
sense.
a shot. I feel like he'd have such a personal, like dynamic kind of story.
Nice.
But this is about you. This isn't about him. So let's reel back in. I wanted to talk about, you're such an intriguing person. You're in so many things. But one of the, I think, coolest parts about your story was that you got featured like on Dr. Phil.
Mm-hmm.
So let's hear all about how that happened, because that's not an everyday story.
Right. So I do like No Shave November stuff, as you can see.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of been going on for a handful of years. Like I've actually been doing that off and on for most of my modeling career. So my boyfriend's a photographer, and flashback to before I met him, he would work with this model and they were doing like a fashion shoot at Tower Grove Park or something. And she happened to have armpit hair and she was like, "Is it okay if I raise my arm?" And he's like, "Yeah, why would I care? Because I have armpit hair or whatever." And he's like, "Okay, why would I care about that?"
Wow.
And that was like when he started to realize that women have like this like insecurity about like around like the topic of like having body hair.
Yeah.
And he decided to start doing these yearly No Shave November photo shoots for like empowerment and confidence and helping women feel more confident in their skin and stuff. So then I met him, I don't know how many years later, a handful of years later, and I saw him doing that with these models. I got a little bit jealous. I was like, "Can I do it too?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, of course." I'm like, do you care if I grow armpit hair? Because like he was my boyfriend, you care what your partner thinks
Totally.
about like your body and stuff. And he's like, yeah, why would I care? And so I did it. I thought it would be a one-time thing. Like I thought I was just gonna grow it, do the photo shoot, and then shave the rest of my life. But I totally fell in love with it. Gave me so much confidence, so much self-esteem, which sounds weird. Like I did not see it coming. Like
Yeah.
it sounds weird until you actually do it and experience that. Like I got so much out of it, and like I cared less what other people thought of me, and it was just a really cool transformation that I never expected. Like I shaved so obsessively when I was younger that like I never saw that as being my future self. Like
Totally.
when I was a kid, I had people shaming me for, like when I started growing armpit hair for the first time, I had a friend who noticed it and like freaked out and started talking to me about shaving. I even had a friend that I was like probably like 8, 9, or 10 at that time. Like I'm German, so I grow body hair fast. And like I think I started growing it from a younger age than like most kids.
Yeah.
And then I was like 12-ish when another friend called me a gorilla because of my arm hair. Like she noticed my arm hair and called me a gorilla. So there was like a lot of insecurity about that.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to like
Own
get
it.
so much out of like, I can grow it and it looks good and I love it.
Yeah.
So I've been just doing it for years. We did like no shave shoots at least once a year. I pretty much only shave like a couple times a year when I have to for like certain shoots or events or whatever. But it was like 2021 or 2022, I got an email that was like, hey, we're with Dr. Phil. We saw you do this and that with the body hair, and we're thinking about doing an episode on like beauty standards and how they've changed over the decades. And like I get a lot of scam emails, so I'm like,
Yeah.
is this real? So like I know the things to look at to like figure out if it's real or not. And like it all looked real, and their email said from like at CBS or whatever. So I'm like, that looks legit. So I went along with it, answered all their questions, and I was just like kind of seeing how it went.
Yeah.
And like it seemed legit. Like I did like the pre-interviews and stuff, and I didn't know 100% that it was legit until I was like about ready to record for the show.
Yeah.
I had to Skype in because of certain laws that were going on in that area at the time. And yeah, I was on Dr. Phil. It was so crazy. Definitely one of the coolest things I've gotten to do in my career. And yeah, I'm so glad I got to do that. Like, it's the coolest thing on my resume, probably.
Yeah, and I think what's so awesome about that story too, I mean, there's so many awesome things about it, but it's just all that cool opportunity came about because you were authentically you, owning you, not having any insecurities. And I think when you're in that energy space, that's when magic happens in your life, in every area.
I just remembered a really cool part of that story I left out. I think the video that they found me from, I remember I was making a video. It was just like a bunch of pictures of me with armpit hair set to like a song or something. I think that's what they found me from, because I didn't remember any other videos or anything, because they found me through TikTok.
Right.
So I was like, that's the video I remember posting that showed it. And when I was making that video, I was like, why am I doing this? I was thinking, like, why am I making this? No one's gonna see it. Like, I don't really know why I'm doing this. But I just had a feeling. I was like, I have to make it and post it. And then sure enough,
it's a good thing.
I was like, thank you, God.
Yeah, and like also, this is a good example of where like TikTok is actually positive and creating. I think there's a lot of creators. Maybe as a consumer, it can go pros and cons, but as a creator, it's such an incredible platform.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I'm a big TikTok fan. I understand there's like pros and cons with both, but I'm so glad we still have it.
Literally.
But and I think part of it is like, and I won't get like too deep into like TikTok talk or whatever, but it's not really censored, so like kind of everyone has a voice, and a lot of other platforms are more censored. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things I like about it, because I've found a lot of like real stuff on there that gets censored on other platforms. So I'm a big TikTok girl.
I am too.
And I know the concerns about like, you know, privacy and data and stuff. Like, I totally believe that too. But I don't know. There's good and bad with everything. So, but I'm also a TikTok addict. So I'm glad I get to. I like to watch TikTok to relax at night. So that's one of my things.
Honestly, same. And I was late to the game. Like, I started TikTok, honestly, it might have been like within the last year and a half.
I did in 2020.
Okay.
During the lockdown.
Right.
Which I think is when a lot of people got into it.
Yeah, I still, even during the lockdown, that wasn't my time on it. It was the podcast that got me back on. Because I just wanted to make sure I hit all the platforms.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I do the YouTube shorts. I actually did Twitter or X for a little while. I haven't been as good at posting on there.
I'm not as good with that. Facebook and Instagram are my main ones. TikTok is probably third for me as far as like posting goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do the same thing with like my modeling and influencer stuff. I try to spread myself across all platforms because some people are on one but not the other.
Yeah.
So just try to put myself out there.
Yeah, you're really good at that.
Thank you.
I want to go into that a little bit more, but I have a question about like that experience with Dr. Phil. And what's so funny, full disclosure, I keep calling him Uncle Phil.
Oh,
I don't know why. I think
that's
he just
sweet.
has a warm presence, and like the mustache, I think also is just like Uncle Phil.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm like Dr. Phil,
I like that.
Dr. Phil.
I like that.
So like, what was that experience like? You know, I mean, because you were also saying that it was a little different because it was over Zoom since it was during lockdown.
Yeah.
So that must have been like, I don't know, maybe even more nerve-wracking because you're in your space, making sure everything looks camera ready.
Yeah.
And then like, what did that look like?
So thank God my boyfriend's a professional photographer, videographer.
Right, yeah.
We did it in his downstairs living room area. He set up the professional cameras and lights, and I had like a professional makeup artist do my hair and makeup and stuff. So it looked really good. Like, it looked better than like the other people who Skyped in, because they probably just used like a cell phone or whatever. So I really lucked out with that. We also had to, before the actual filming day for the show, we had to do a bunch of B-roll, and they gave me like a day and a half to get it all, and I had like work and other stuff. So I was like, up until filming, I had like a 2-day long, like what felt like a panic attack or something. Like I was freaking out. Like you can see in the footage, I just looked like this. Like I was under so much stress, and I was like freaking out. Like, I'm gonna be on TV in front of millions of people. They can use it however they want. What am I gonna do? What if they make me look bad? But it went great. Like before filming, I like read scripture and watched sloth videos because I really like sloths, and that's how I chilled out before filming. And then it went really well.
I love that. You gotta do what you gotta do, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's like the perfect combination of like faith, but then also like comfort.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's so perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So what was his energy like?
Really chill. Like, I didn't know what he was going to say about me and like body hair and stuff. But he was basically like, because I was like talking about the scientific basis for like why having body hair is actually more hygienic.
Yeah.
And he was like, actually, you're 100% right. I was like, oh, thank God.
He validated you. That's so great.
Like, that's so cool. And it wasn't just me on the episode. There were different people representing different beauty standards. So there was like, so me with the body hair. There was like someone who had like a ton of plastic surgery. There was a girl who made herself look like Barbie.
I know that girl.
Really?
I mean, I don't know her personally, but I know who you're talking about. Yeah, totally.
And there was an overweight girl. There was a girl who shaved her head, and there was a girl who bleached her skin. And like,
whoa.
I think me and the girl who shaved her head were like the like good ones or whatever. Like everyone liked us or whatever. And then the other ones kind of had more of like the drama going. Like,
oh, totally.
Like Dr. Phil was talking to like the overweight girl about why it's like not healthy or whatever, and she was like arguing back about it, and like the Barbie girl was like hopping in, and there was some drama with that, which was pretty entertaining, honestly. But I'm glad I was like people like I like read a lot of the comments and stuff, and I was like one of the sane ones according to people. I'm like, thank God they didn't make me look bad.
Yeah. And I mean, also intention is so powerful too. I feel like everyone's going to do what they're going to do. Bad or good, everyone's going to have an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But like when you come across in a way where you're not trying to impose your views on anyone, but you're coming from a place of empowerment, and you're like, listen, other people can shave or don't shave.
And that's what I was talking about too, because some people, they act like, well, I guess I'll give you an example. Like I shave sometimes when I need to or want to or whatever. And there was one guy who commented and was like, you lose everything you stand for by shaving. And I'm like, no, what I stand for is having the freedom to shave or to not shave. It's not you have to grow out your body hair. It's you have the freedom to do either. Right. So I'm like, I'm not going against what I stand for at all. Like, people just see the body hair and they like act like that's my identity or something. And I'm like, no, it's just something I like to do.
And I think that's really powerful too, because honestly, no matter what it is, there might be an area that at some point in your life, like that's who you are, that's what you do, that's what you stand for. But life is, God willing, you live a long life. There's a lot of seasons in your life. There's a lot of different scenarios. You shouldn't have to be stuck with one identity for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the other comments I got was, imagine making armpit hair your whole personality. And I'm like, I'm not. Literally, Dr. Phil's team reached out to me. I didn't even reach out to them.
Right.
Like, and even today, I was filling out, like, answering questions for, it's going to be like an article or something about, once again, my body hair. They reached out to me. The Daily Mail reached out to me. Mm-hmm. A Snapchat show reached out to me. All about the same subject. Right. So it's very fascinating to people, apparently. But I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, and that makes me even more grateful that you reached out to me, because like there are all these great places reaching out to you, and so that makes me honored that like, you chose my platform. So that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I would love to hear more about that, the scientific reasons about like why body hair is like hygienic, because I don't know much about that, to be honest.
So basically, and it's been a while since I've talked about it, but basically like, if you're shaved, it's just like skin on skin. Yeah. But if you have hair, there's like a seal that breaks it.
It's a barrier.
So it kind of and like, so there's more sweat when it's just skin on skin, and bacteria feeds off of that. So that's the gist of it, basically. So and Dr. Phil was like, you're right. I was like, yes.
Yeah, and it's interesting because let's say for example, so I grew up like Jewish and Orthodox. And so part of like how we dress is like super modest. Mm-hmm. Perfect example of like, at least from the top, I'm modest. What we're wearing is like we have to cover our collarbones and our elbows. So a lot of times as girls growing up, whether you shave or didn't shave, who would know? Honestly, unless you were going swimming, which swimming was always an all women's event, mm-hmm. or if like once you got married or around like your brothers or your father, but they don't care. And depending on your husband, I guess he would care or not care, right? Every guy's going to be different.
Right.
But it was like, I used to be so afraid of like shaving. My mom told me that I was going to not like shaving because she had an aversion to it.
So it was like more normal for you.
In a way, even like with my legs was the thing that I started doing in middle school. And my mom didn't want me to use the razor because she was scared of razors and she thought that I had a sensitivity with pain. So she kind of like projected that onto me. And I thought I was afraid of razors without even trying it. And then I used to use like Nair, like the cream.
I tried that one time.
It burns sometimes if you do it wrong.
When I used it on my legs, one time, I bled out of every single pore on my legs. My skin is so sensitive.
Oh my God.
Crazy sensitive.
Yeah. I feel like you should have gotten some sort of like lawsuit going or something for that.
Maybe. Like it wasn't like a lot. It was just like little dots. But I was like, I'm not doing that ever again.
No, sometimes like, and it was weird how sometimes it'd be fine. And sometimes it would burn, and like the burning sensation would last a few hours. Like
Wow.
it was insane. I don't.
Do you have sensitive skin too?
I do.
Okay, yeah.
I do. It's gotten better as I've gotten older, but like when I was a kid, there were certain materials that I couldn't wear.
Me too, but I think for other reasons.
Fair. You want to get into that, or?
I might get haters for it, but I'm pretty sure I'm autistic, so.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a sensory thing then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's
Like
some
I
haters
could
for that.
never. Well, some people, like, I've tried to tell them that, and they're like, "Oh no, you're not. I've worked with autistic kids," and I'm like, "I'm pretty sure it's a spectrum."
It's a
but okay.
spectrum. That's ridiculous.
When I look up symptoms and stuff, I match like 99% of them. So.
Okay, so you haven't been diagnosed officially.
Yeah.
You just feel that.
I'm like, I saw this hat recently on social media. It said undiagnosed but pretty sure. I'm like, that's me.
Honestly, and that's okay. And you're not harming anybody by saying that you're autistic. You're not taking away from
Right. And
anyone.
it explains so many of my life experiences, like being like even a little kid and like all the rejection I dealt with and like people acting like I'm like weird and like way different than all of them. Now I'm like, I was different from all of them, but it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Totally. Like it's kind of comforting in a way because I'm like, I never figured it out until like recently, and I'm like, now it makes sense.
Right, and it helps you navigate life too.
Yeah.
I think that this is an ongoing debate that I've had, and I've talked to a few of my guests about it, about like, is labeling disabling, right? Sometimes I feel like it can be, especially like in our generation, we love personality tests.
Mm-hmm.
So like the Myers-Briggs personality test, or are you extroverted, are you introverted? Like that's everyone's question, right? And it's like, I don't know, like, I think it's kind of like the same thing as saying like, should I shave? Should I not shave? It goes back to that whole thing of if it makes you feel comfortable and empowered, do it. If there's a point when that no longer serves you, don't do it. And that's okay.
I think it can go both ways. And I think it's about how people deal with it. Like, because some people, if they have like a certain disorder or something, and they like hold on to it like it's their baby, like, yeah, I have this and this is me, and no, you can't do this because I have this. And like, they really do like make it their identity. And like, so I try to be really aware, like, this isn't me. I'm just experiencing this right now. And I'm still accountable for how I act, what I do, what I say, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And I can't use those things as an excuse for acting incorrectly. So I try to think of it more as like, understanding why, like, this is an excuse, but it might help explain why I do certain things.
It's a roadmap for you.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
I remember it was how I got into shaving. I was 17 and I had two friends staying with us for that summer. We were all working at a local day camp as counselors. And they were from out of town staying at my house for the summer. And girls teach each other so much. Teach.
Oh, teach.
You know, like there's just like when you're around each other, you just learn so much about life.
Yeah.
And obviously my friends had razors and were shaving, and I was just like, how do you guys do it?
So were they not Jewish?
No, they were Jewish.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, how do you guys do this? Like, I don't know. I feel like shaving, like, still, like, it's so interesting how, like, I had this fear of something that was never truly my fear.
Mm-hmm.
And then my friend was like, girl, let me teach you. Like, it's so easy.
Aww.
And she, like, just kind of mimicked doing it. She's like, just try it. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it. Keep doing what you're doing. And then I tried it, and she's like, you know, you can also, like, shave other body hair. And I was like, what? What? And like, it just never mattered before. But then I was like, oh, okay. And then, because I think tried doing nair on my armpits, and whoo.
I think I only did it on my legs.
Don't try it anywhere else.
Fun fact, since I do like grow it out and stuff, when I was like 16, I got laser hair removal treatment on my armpits.
Yeah.
and
And so gross.
it didn't work.
Yeah.
And now I'm
Thankful.
so glad it didn't work, because now I'm like, I love this, and it got me in front of like millions of people, which was like always one of my dreams. So like, hell yeah.
And it's so funny because at the time it probably was really disappointing to you.
Yeah.
Because it's expensive.
Yeah.
And then it's a little not painful, but it can be a little painful.
Yeah.
Especially if you have sensitive skin.
Yeah.
And then for it not to work.
Although certain kinds of, like, I'm weird about pain. Like, certain things I have a high pain tolerance for. Like, I have a few tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
I love the feeling of getting them. I also used to self-harm, so I think that's part of it. Like, I don't know. I think maybe it's because of like trauma. I'm like okay with it or something. But and then other things I'm like a baby about. Like, I can't have a tag on my shirt.
Oh my gosh, no, that's
But
the
I'll
worst.
like have needles in my skin. Like,
we all have our
it's funny.
things. Yeah, it is. It's interesting like what we can handle and not handle in life.
Mm-hmm.
But I really I loved when I looked it up, the episode that you were on with Dr. Phil was called
Did you watch it?
I watched a little bit of
Yay!
it. Yeah, it was really interesting. I thought like the name The Beautiful Rebellion was so interesting too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I do like to binge my guests before they come on, just
Smart.
to really like
Smart.
understand them,
Yeah.
like what lights them up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Totally.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was pretty cool. Not gonna
Yay.
lie. Like, that's a really cool experience. It's not like, I mean, I've watched Dr. Phil just in general. So like to watch it and know the person who's on it just kind of gives it like a different like feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, I live in a small town. I won't say it on here, but like I'll tell you later. But I live in like a smaller town, and I guess my episode played in like my local bank that I've been going to for like years.
Yeah.
And like now whenever I go into the bank, they like act like I'm a celebrity or something. I'm like, I like that.
It is weird how nowadays where it's like, we both know as creators how easy it is to just turn on a camera, record yourself, and just put it out into the ether. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you get.
Yeah.
The less you like freaked out about how you're going to be perceived or whatever, because whatever, I mean, you put it out enough times.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Right? And if you have like a bad review or like you look back at old stuff and you're like, oh, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I took that out to the world. But I think as a creator, I was really inspired by Mr. Beast because he had a clip where he was saying how if you want to become a creator, you should create 100 videos.
Nice.
And you're going to suck.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But you're going to get good.
Yep.
You know? There was another motivational speaker and he was like old school, and I can't remember his name, but he said that your goal should be to become a millionaire. Not to become a millionaire, but because of who you will become when you become a millionaire.
Like, it'll show you
like the process, that journey, the kind of person that you will need to be to achieve that goal. That's the goal, to be a millionaire. It's not the status, it's not the money, it's
I like that.
the character, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's similar with being like a creator too, where everyone's like, oh, I'm too shy, I can't do that, I would never. Like even just having people on, even just for one episode, I know I have so many great stories in my backpack from people in my life who would make such an impact and they're too scared.
Aww.
It happens more than you think.
That sucks. But to be fair, I remember when I was at that point, so.
Yeah, what was it for you? Because like you had said as like a kid or high schooler, like you knew you had this vision of you being famous, right?
So when I was in middle school, I was like super depressed, super anxious, like biggest, like shyest introvert you'd ever meet.
Yeah.
Like didn't really have friends. I mean, I had a few here and there off and on. That was like back when I self-harmed and stuff. So that was like a long journey. Felt like it was never gonna end. Just like literally the worst time of my life. Things started to get better toward the end of middle school. And like it was like between middle school and high school, I started having this dream that I was gonna be a model. And like I think part of me always wanted to be like famous.
Yeah.
And like kind of everybody does. So like
A little bit.
But and like
It's like I made it kind of feeling.
I didn't know how I was gonna do it, but I'm like, I know I have like the drive. I know I'm willing to put in the hard work to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I had technical issues during Dr. Phil.
You did?
Well,
I would have a panic attack.
Well, here's what happened. It was okay because
Okay.
the first whole part where he did my interview part, everything went great, and it was like the like audio and video people who like keep an eye on everything during the whole episode, like they can see me the whole time even if I'm like not on screen on the show.
Right.
So like the camera died and the guy, like I could hear him through my like audio whatever, and he was like, "Hey, your camera just died, like everything okay?" I'm like Brad, the camera died, like what's going on? And he was like rushing all over his house like trying to find batteries, like just in case they called me back onto the screen. Rushed. Oh my gosh, couldn't find them. Finally found them, put it back on in, got it turned back on, so it was fine, but they didn't end up having me go back on screen, so
Thank God.
it didn't really matter anyway, but like I was like, and he kept checking like,
whoa,
everything okay? Like can you turn it back on? I'm like, he's trying to find some batteries.
This stuff happens all the time, like all the time. And like I've gone back and forth where like a new issue that I have sometimes technology wise is that my screen will work, but like the video is good from the camera that I use for me, but maybe my gas cut off too early because I use my better camera for my gas, and that's also my personal phone.
Oh.
But
So
my
then you
personal
have to
phone
use
has more
more
data, so if I haven't cleared everything off before the episode, sometimes it will short circuit. And the new thing that I'm doing more episodes now, so if I don't delete old stuff, it's still in the delete, like recycling bin.
Yeah.
And I have to delete that too.
So that takes up space.
Didn't know.
Aw.
Didn't know.
Yep. But
It's
now
okay.
we know.
And now I know everything's gonna work out. It's gonna be great. I want to go back to your story about, you were saying how like your friend was doing modeling, the modeling mayhem. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, so I had a friend who was a model and she got me started on Model Mayhem, which is basically like the Facebook for people in like modeling, photography, like hair, makeup, magazines, blah, blah, blah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And that's how I actually found my first like few photographers.
Yeah.
Found my first few photographers through that. I ended up making a Facebook account just for my modeling work.
Yeah.
And I just like started networking like crazy, like joining groups, adding photographers. Like,
Yeah.
I went crazy with that stuff, and it's really the networking that did it. Like, I couldn't even tell you guys how many hours I put into that, but
You have
it
to.
paid off. It paid off, and
Yeah.
now I've done all this cool stuff, and
Yeah.
there's still more to do. I still have goals, but I feel like I can kind of relax a little bit too. I'm like,
You've earned it.
put in the work, got some cool stuff out of it, and there'll be more to come.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of it. Like there is a hustle you have to do in the beginning when no one knows you and you're still learning your craft, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a combination of learning your craft, getting better, doing those connections, building that portfolio. And then there is that sweet spot where your work speaks for itself. And then word of mouth is so powerful too. So once you've made those connections, people are like, oh, let me connect you to this person. Let me connect you to this person. Because I feel the same thing with my podcast, where like you were the second person who's ever reached out to me, which was so exciting. But now it's starting to happen more.
Nice.
And now I'm going to networking events. I'm meeting people who are like, oh, you have such a cool story. Let me get you on
You probably
here.
find a lot of cool people through that, don't you?
So cool. And what's so great about podcasts is that there's so many people to learn from in the world too. It's not just like, oh, come on my podcast. Like genuinely, like you're so cool. Like I want to learn about you. That's how I felt like when you reached out to me. I looked at her reach. I'm like, she wants to come on my show. Stop it. It's so cool. You know, and it's just because I'm so intrigued by people and their stories. And I think there's so much power in owning your story. And I think there's so much power in connection.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
And so like now it's getting to the point where I've got people who have been guests who want to introduce me to their people who are
Oh
like,
yeah,
you know.
I'll have some people to recommend for sure too. So yeah.
See, that's so cool. And like that is exactly what you're talking about. Where like there's this hustle you have to do to just get your name out there. But then once you start to get somewhat established, then you can just,
Yeah.
which is
And
so cool.
and like I still work really hard, but like
oh,
I don't
yeah.
have to put in, I guess, hard work in the same way that I did in the beginning.
Right. And then you get to put the work into the areas that you want to put it in, not necessarily a one-woman show for everything anymore.
Yeah. And
totally.
like when I started, I've been modeling like 9 years now. Actually, in like a week, it'll be my 9-year modelversary. Yay!
I'm so inspired by what you do on so many levels.
Oh, thank you.
But like taking photos is really special in general. Like, but at the same time, there's this weird conundrum that I have of like just living in the moment and let's not take photos, Because I think especially as women, a lot of times where it really comes from is this insecurity when you see the picture and you're like, oh, but I felt beautiful. But then I see that picture and you don't know how to pose and you don't know your angles or the lighting or whatever. And so, and let's be real, energy is so important as well. Like I learned that even with this.
Mindset is a big part of modeling too. And a lot of people don't think about that. You got to be in the right mindset. You got to think of yourself a different way.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I had to figure out.
It's an art. It is truly an art. And I don't think models get enough credit, especially because...
Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, I've been doing this for 9 years and people are still surprised when I ask to get paid to model. I'm like, this is my job, my dude.
Yeah. And also it's like, that's wild that people will be people.
Yeah.
People definitely just want things for free, which is wild to me.
Yeah.
And even like collabing also a lot of times, like, is it in my best interest? That's something
And
to keep
yeah,
in
and like
mind.
there's nothing wrong with collabing. Like I'll do that if I feel like it makes sense. Like I'm getting something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But like just doing like a regular photo shoot that I've done before, like pay me.
Yeah, I mean, you're bringing value.
And like sometimes photographers will be offended when I ask to be paid, and I think they take it the wrong way. Like I think they take it as like they're not worth my time to like work with for free. But honestly, the biggest part of it is I don't have the time and energy, and I'm giving up something else
To
do
be
that.
here.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And they take it as like a personal attack. I'm like, no, it's not like that at all.
It's
Like
nothing
if I could
personal.
work with everyone for free, I would, but it's just not how
It's
it
not
is.
reality.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, and you know what? Like you are the CEO of your own company, which is you, right? Because that's what your business is, you.
Yeah.
And I think as women especially, but men too, but maybe it's just not talked about enough, we have insecurities for how we appear on camera and how we're perceived.
Mhm.
And you see yourself in the mirror, and I have a friend, he has the best confidence ever. He's like, I've never met a mirror that I don't like.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
Which snaps for
I'm
that.
like, I wish I could do that.
That energy is so phenomenal. But like I have to say, like, I kind of agree with him. Like I see myself in the mirror and I feel good. I see myself in the reflections of windows and I feel good. But like, oh my gosh, even like the first time I saw myself recorded on a podcast episode, I was like, I'm not gonna lie. I am a big face app girly. I've gotten better about it. And like, I don't do it on videos, obviously, but like photos, it's really hard not to.
Yeah, I do it too. It's okay.
Especially as a graphic designer. But the problem is I have to like tone it down a notch. Because back in the day, when I was on dating apps pretty hard, I was a catfisher and I did not mean to be. It's just once I started editing, the next thing you know, I've created this alter ego.
Because it's gradual.
It's gradual. And you're doing the work and you're like, this girl looks phenomenal. And she's stunning and she's gorgeous. She's not me. and I'm beautiful too, but it's just, you know what I mean? Like I've just created a totally different face. Because it's like you said, it's the gradual, it's those tiny little tweaks.
Yeah.
So from a model's perspective, obviously you just admitted like you do something a little bit yourself, but like obviously you've probably seen photo shoots where they've done work
Yeah.
to you. How does that make you feel?
So if I'm doing stuff myself, I can edit it however I want.
Right.
If a photographer's taking pictures of me, that's their, like, legally their photos are their property. It's bad to edit someone else's photos without permission, because legally it's their property. Sometimes I love it, sometimes I hate it. It's not very often that I have to ask somebody to like take a picture down. Sometimes I'm like, it's not the best picture of me, but like it's not like horrible enough that I'm gonna like try and get them to take it down or whatever. So it's kind of a spectrum thing. But sometimes I'm like, there were such better photos from that shoot and you picked these. Why? But a lot of photographers I work with are men. And I think men see women differently than we see ourselves. So it's like a male and female gaze thing. Like they might think a picture looks really good, and I'm like, that is not a good picture of me.
The male gaze versus...
What are you thinking?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, men and women are different. I think we just see things differently. So
I guess the proof is like when you're in a relationship, you've probably seen this trend. Like girls have done on their TikToks or Instagram reels where it's like pictures I take of him versus the pictures he takes of me, right? And I think there's almost a certain comfort in that, in knowing that like, I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, especially if like you're in a heterosexual relationship, trying to like impress your man and like wanting to look a certain way for him. But it seems like based on their photos that they take of us, the standards are actually pretty low. You know?
Yeah, sometimes I'll say to my boyfriend, I'll be like, oh, I feel so fat and gross. And like sometimes, like I feel like I'm very sensitive to my weight. Like I can tell if I've just put on a couple pounds. And my boyfriend's like, I didn't notice. And like, if he would have noticed, he would not say he didn't notice. Like he would tell me honestly. So I'm like, oh, good. Like that's a relief at least. Like maybe I'm imagining it or something. So
right. Yeah, or at least you know if you have a standard and it's like for yourself that's super high. At least there's a comfort in knowing that he still loves you and he's not holding you to this impossible high standard.
Yeah.
Which honestly from the get-go was proof with your specific relationship, the fact that he was so like kind about women and like why would I care if you just had body hair? That's normal. That's what everyone has.
I think part of it for him is that he went to school in the UK.
Cool.
So it was like body hair was like very normal.
Really?
There, yeah. Like I think a lot of women there don't shave or something.
Really?
So he was, I get maybe desensitized to it. So he's like, so what if she has armpit hair? Like who cares? So yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And like a lot of people try to make it a political thing. Like they try to assume my politics or religion or this or that. And I'm like, it's not about that. I just like it. Like people try to fit us into a box that we don't fit into.
Totally.
I'm like, I only fit into a Nikki shaped box.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is that like even with shaving, because I've become pretty fanatic with it, is that like it's still almost impossible to get that perfect shave. I see so many like celebrities or people who like seem to have like flawless armpits with like absolutely no hair or stubble or anything like that. And I don't know if I'm like just similar to you or like my body hair just grows so much faster. But it's like that was like an insecurity of mine where like even when I became more modern,
me too.
Yeah, like I would never, even now, like there's so many dresses, like let's say in the summer that I have that are like maxi dresses that are beautiful, but they're like the spaghetti straps.
Yeah.
And I'll wear like a jean jacket over it or something like that. Because even though I've shaved, it's just not perfect. And I just have that fear of like not being perfect.
See, you need to get like me and like when I first started like not shaving, my boyfriend still brings up this moment every now and then because it was like a really cool moment for both of us. I was like in the process of like my confidence growing from it, honestly. And we went to a coffee shop and I just leaned back and went like this in front of everybody. And he said that my face was like so lit up, like I looked so happy and so free. Like it was like the moment that like I guess we both realized that like I had broken the fear of that particular thing. And like I felt so free from like what people thought. Cause I was just showing it off to everybody and I didn't care.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a process, but it didn't take as long as you'd think. Like, I don't know, it was so weird.
Just owning
Like,
you.
I never thought that would happen. I never thought I would even want to make it happen. Because, like, in our society, shaving is so normal for women.
Expected.
It was
almost.
just like, no, that's what I do. Okay, cool. But so, like, I don't know, that whole journey was, like, unexpected, but, like, really amazing.
Yeah. My brother, who came on recently on my podcast, he shared this quote by Winston Churchill, which is really profound, which I'm going to paraphrase because I can't remember it verbatim. But it's like, in your 20s, you care what everyone thinks about you. In your 40s, you stop caring what other people think. And in your 60s, you realize no one was thinking about you at all.
Yeah,
So
I like that.
I think that's so profound, and I think that's true in so many areas of our life. And I think going back to also the networking, where like both of us like have our own businesses and have this dream, this vision that it's so scary when you have a vision like that where it's so real you can almost taste it, because then it becomes this moral obligation to make it a reality.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're the lucky ones because some people just don't have that passion. They don't know what that dream is.
Yeah.
And but there's that moral obligation where once you see it, now you're like, oh, but I need to make it happen. But then when you actually reverse engineer and take all the steps that it takes to make it happen, it's hard work.
That's how I am. Well, I actually want to make music more than anything. Like, more than modeling. Like, that's been my biggest dream. I wish my boyfriend was here to tell you. He's like, do you ever stop talking about bands? He's like, I think I counted 3 days in the last 8 months that you didn't talk about music. Because it's like,
it's your soul.
I don't know. I guess music got me through like the worst times of my life, kind of.
Totally.
And not like literally, like it was God, like for real, but it's what I was, I guess, filling myself with in those experiences. And there have been so many like bands and artists that I've connected on such a deep level with. Like I've always been a concert girl, met like some of my favorite bands, like one of my favorite singers died a few years ago and I got to visit her grave and meet her family and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to get a tattoo for her. Like, I don't know, it's like, and like lately I've been super obsessed with this band Dayseeker, and they just like send me into another dimension. They're
I've
like
looked them
so
up.
dreamy.
Because of you.
You did?
Yeah, because you shared on your story about them.
Oh!
And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I didn't message you about this. I don't know why. I sometimes do, sometimes don't. But like, just so you know, if you post something on your story, I'm a serial story watcher. So
nice.
like,
I watch a lot of stories too.
Oh my gosh. Sometimes the problem is I'll be watching stories when I'm like doing my makeup or getting ready in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it could be I missed stories, but like I viewed it, but I didn't see that I viewed it because I was just doing the other
like
things.
cycling through.
Totally. But like, I especially love when people post music because growing up, I grew up super religious. And I took this on myself too because I'm kind of like this where I get like very tunnel vision when I want something. So there was a time in high school when even though I grew up religious, I got even more religious. Like I was overly zealous, like gonna marry a rabbi and be like the most religious person you've ever met in your life, right? And then, so I was like, no movies, no TV, no non-Jewish music, like nothing. And then once I let that go, because I burned myself out pretty bad.
Yeah.
19, I started listening to non-Jewish music. And I remember my cousin would send me songs and kind of have a playlist, but I still feel like such a novice with music. So especially when I see people post stories, as people frequently do,
I kind of went through a similar thing.
Yeah.
Like in like middle school and high school, I was a music obsessed freak. Like while other people at my school were like hanging out with people and having a social life, I was at home finding new bands to listen to. Like that was my thing. From like, I don't know, I remember I first got into like System of a Down when Hypnotize came out, which was like, I'm 27 now. It was like, I could have sworn I was like in kindergarten at the time, but I think I was actually like 8 or something. And I like started getting into System of a Down, and then it just kept going from there. And like, I got into like all kinds of rock and metal and pop and all kinds of stuff. And now my music taste is like all over the place, but I went through a period where I mostly listened to Christian music, which was a really good time in my life. I do believe that you should be careful about the kinds of media you consume.
Yeah.
Like if you take in too much negative stuff, it can really affect you. So I was actually really happy at that point in my life. Kind of like backslid a little bit. Like I'm kind of an emo kid at heart, so I like my sad girl music. So it's good to be careful, but I'm really, I don't know. Music is my passion. I don't know. I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that if it brings you joy. And I'm just looking at your face while you talk about it. You're so full of life and like you're just like shining right now. So you can tell how much you love it for sure. There's this quote that I love quotes. There's this quote that I think that really personifies like this concept, which is where words fail, music speaks.
And I'm like, I know we're doing like an interview type thing, but in general, I've never felt like I was the best with words.
Really?
Like, I think I have a weird insecurity around my voice. Not like the way my voice sounds, but like what I have to share, I guess. I don't know. And like growing up, people called me stupid and dumb a lot and acted like I was dumb. And that was like my biggest insecurity for the longest time. But like certain music just like hits me in such a way and I feel it and it's like almost like I know what it's about without even knowing.
Yeah.
Or like maybe I connect that meaning to something in my life to where it like resonates with me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
There's another one of my guests told me about this really cool class, which I haven't signed up for yet, but I'm intrigued by it because obviously my whole thing is words, right? I tell my story, but it's also really important for me to have the art of conversation to be able to create a space and to ask the right questions to bring out my guest story, right?
Right, yeah.
And it's a constant thing that I'm practicing. I mean, even as a barista, because that's what I'm doing mainly right now, I use it, I feel like it's like speed dating. I have 2 to 3 minutes with each customer. How do I bring the most out of that interaction, right? And it's just a challenge that I'm always doing with myself. And sometimes I fail and I fail hard.
Aww.
And sometimes like,
I'm sure it's not always on you though. Like some people maybe like, I don't know, just give you my coffee.
I read the room. I definitely read the room and just see the vibes.
Yeah.
But like sometimes it's those people who are the most in their own worlds that end up actually one day, the moment just strikes and they share everything with me, which I love those days. But there's this...
I love those moments.
Aren't those so great?
But when I'm in a group with my friends, just hanging out or whatever, I feel like I'm usually the quiet one, and everyone else is really loud and talking and trying to control the conversation. And if it's something I'm really passionate about or like know more about or whatever, like I might speak up a little more, but in general, like if me, my boyfriend, and my best friend are together, like the 3 of us, we hang out sometimes, them 2 are like being loud and talking and I'm just chilling here and I'll just enjoy the show, I guess.
Believe it or not, I'm the same way.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not always the one who's like doing the talking. It just depends. It depends on what energy I want to be into because sometimes I just want to be chilling.
Yeah.
And it's nice to just sit back. Ironically, I found that when I don't feel the need to control the conversation, and people have said their piece, then they're all like, oh, well, what do you think?
Yeah, I get that too.
Right?
Oh, Nikki, we haven't heard from you in a while. What do you have to add to it? I'm like, well, thank you for asking.
Yeah, no, it's important.
Yeah, the girl who's my best friend now, who's also a model, Lucy Toby, look her up. You should have her on your show, by the way.
Okay.
She's one of the. It'll probably be your best episode ever. I'm just saying, she's great.
I love that.
So we're both models. We met at like a book casting call thing.
Cool.
But like we didn't really like make a connection.
Mhm.
I think she was like really nervous, so she was like kind of quiet. I was like checking people in or whatever, so it was just like, oh hi, you're Lucy, right? Like I know you from social media, and it was just like a quick like hi bye thing. We ended up there's this big convention thing called Shutterfest that we do every single year. It's like a photography convention where they have like photography classes and they need models for the classes.
Oh,
So we do that every year, and people kept getting me and her confused. Like they'd call me Lucy and they'd call her Nikki, and we were like messaging each other like, someone thought I was you today. Like what? And like we messaged each other again later. It's like a 2 or 3 day event, and she's like, oh hey, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm hiding in my car. I'm exhausted. And she like stuck her head out the window and honked her horn. She's like, dude, I'm doing the same thing.
Oh,
And
wow.
like it was like this connection where I was like, we were like in the same mindset or whatever, and
So powerful.
we ended up being in the same music video together, and we had to go to like Washington, Missouri to film it. So we rode together and like trauma dumped on each other, and we realized like, oh, it's a, can I cuss on here?
Yeah.
It's like another fucked up person just like me, and it just like grew from there. Now we're best friends and we're like crazy and like literally the same person. Like we make a joke that God hit print twice.
I love
Because
that.
like I've struggled to find like close friends for a long time because
Yeah.
I'm kind of a weird personality, and like it's just hard to find someone who really clicks with me in like a very deep personal way. And like people were praying for me for years to like find a close friend, and then I found her and I'm like, that's the one. And like now we've been to Mexico and Aruba together. Like
Oh,
I never thought like I would have a friend like that. So yeah.
And you know
And
what?
we're crazy and weird, and like we don't have to hold anything back.
It's the
Like,
best.
I'll try to say the most fucked up stuff to her, and she's like, yep. And I'm like, I can't shock you, can I?
Honestly, that's so good. And you should take that energy with every interaction you have. First of all, because you should own you.
Yeah.
And never apologize for being you, because you're awesome, truly. And like when you show up and you're 100% authentically you, you're going to find your people that much faster, because when
That's
you
true.
are open, it gives permission to be other people to
That's
be
true.
open, right? And then if someone doesn't align with you, it weeds them out so much faster. So I'm a big
True.
believer
That's
in
true.
just fuck it. Like, why not? Like, why not? Life is too short. And how worth it is it to have a friendship like that? Right?
Yeah. I'm so thankful that we've got to the point we could like find those things in each other that like I can literally say anything that comes to my head and like it doesn't shock her. Like we're just
Yeah.
like crazy.
And you know, I really relate to you because you mentioned that you had been bullied when you were younger.
Mhm.
And I had the same experience. I was bullied from 2nd through 8th grade.
Oh.
And so I know what that's like, not to have friends and to feel isolated and to feel like no one gets you and like all you want is a friend, right?
Yeah.
And then to be where you are too, where I have those friends now who like
Yeah.
mean the world to me. And I wouldn't wish that pain and suffering on anyone,
Mhm.
but sometimes when you are delayed in getting something you want, it
Mhm.
makes when you get it that much sweeter.
Yeah, and not just the bullying, but also I like one really traumatizing thing I went through. A former best friend I had years ago tried to sleep with the guy I was with at the time. And
ew.
so I could not get close to other women after that.
Oh,
I was like,
trust.
I thought any female friend was gonna try to like sleep with my boyfriend. So any female I was like acquaintances with, I was like, I can't get close to you. You're just gonna do this to me.
That's
and-
such a terrible feeling. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, the
Such a
boyfriend at the
betrayal.
time is a betrayal as well.
Well, they didn't do it.
Oh,
She tried.
Oh.
He declined.
good.
He
Okay.
told me,
Good.
and I confronted her, and her husband
T.
went after me like I did something wrong.
What?
Yeah, it was. She was a bad friend in general in a lot of different ways.
But that just sealed the deal.
Yeah, but they blocked me. I'm like, bro, who's the one who messed up here? Excuse me. But like, yeah. So that was really hard. That made it really hard to make friends, especially female friends. But like you said, I'm so much more thankful for the friends I have now because I know I can trust them. I'm like, you can be in a room alone with my boyfriend and I'm not worried that you're going to try something.
Right.
You know? And like, when I realize like I have friends like that now, I'm like, oh, I can breathe.
It's an
like I
awesome
can relax.
feeling.
Like I trust like good, trustworthy people.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there are all kinds of people in this world, but it just makes the good ones really stand out that much more.
Yeah.
And I think what's so wild is like whenever you say to them like, oh, you're so amazing, I'm so thankful to have you in my life, sometimes they'll be like, oh, come on. I'm like, I'm not doing anything nuts, right? I'm just being a good person. You're like, yeah, but unfortunately, being a good person is pretty rare.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you stand out. You stand out for sure.
Definitely. And I think
Yeah.
like I remember the moment that I realized I had it was like a moment I realized I had friends I could leave alone with my boyfriend and everything would be okay. And I think I remember texting a few of my friends. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful for you. I love you. Like, thank you for being such a good, trustworthy friend. And I don't think they were weird about it. I just think they were like, oh my gosh, that's so nice. I love you, Nikki, or whatever. But yeah, it was like a moment I was like, I sort of like, I don't want to say I like pushed people away for so long, but I did resist like letting people get that close to me again, I guess. And it wasn't just that, it was like, it's just hard to find somebody that clicks with me in that way too. Like it was a few things, but there was like a moment I was like, I have good friends now. Like I've had a lot of bad friends in the past and now I have really good ones. So yeah.
I'm really happy for you.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
And I can tell just by the way, like, again, like the way that you're just speaking about it, you're so animated, you're so full of joy.
Aw, thank you.
There's a different energy when people have a good tribe. You know what I mean? Like, we're meant for connection and we need that on so many levels. Like, I truly believe that, like, if you can get to a place, and it takes time, everything takes time, but if you get to a place where you are purpose-driven in your career, doing something that means something to you and you love it, you have good friends, you have a good relationship with your family, and you have a good romantic relationship, life is challenging, but man, oh man, if you got those 4 things, you are like one of the wealthiest people in the world. You know?
Yeah, definitely.
That's truly a gift. And it's so funny for me to ask this question now, but we're on such a high. But I do think like it is so important to share so many elements of our story, right? And like a big part of my podcast, and honestly on a personal level, like why I got into podcasts as a consumer was that so many times I felt lonely. And so I would listen to podcasts the same way you would turn to music.
Yeah.
And hearing conversations, hearing people talk about different topics that I was struggling with made me feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Right?
Literally today I was watching videos on intrusive thoughts because I've been kind of struggling with a little bit of that recently. So
yeah.
And part of it was like, yeah, like I'm not alone. Like someone made a video about it. Like other people are dealing with this too. So
it's so helpful.
Yeah.
And like a big part of, like I said, like there's power in owning your story. There's power in sharing your story. And part of that power, I think, is that you are same way what you do with your friendship, when you own who you are, you're creating space for others to be themselves around you.
Yeah.
And so like one thing that we both have in common, but also have our own unique twist to it, is the bullying and the darkness, right?
Yeah.
And not feeling like you have your place.
Yeah.
And even just self-harm as well.
Yeah.
So I'd like to go into that a
Sure.
little bit and how you dealt. So it's like you were saying how, you know, it's so wonderful to have joy, and it's so wonderful to be in a moment where you're like in a place of success and excited about the future. And of course, we're always going to struggle and have doubts, but I think it's also important to share some of the dark times in our lives too.
Mm-hmm.
So up to you how much you want to share or don't want to share, but I would love if you feel safe to share about what it was like being bullied and like the process of like how that kind of led to you doing self-harm and how you got over that challenge.
I'll be honest, I don't totally remember everything, and maybe that's a trauma response, but I just remember like I started to deal with like the really bad like depression and stuff around like age 11.
That's young.
And I don't even 100% know why it started. Maybe it was the bullying.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even that I was bullied so bad. I just took it so hard,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, like harder than it needed to be probably, honestly. And like, I don't know, whatever happened, or maybe that, maybe other things, I honestly don't know. It just sent me into such a bad place that I was like suicidal every single day. Started self-harming, which was, I don't know if I started that when I was 11, but it was around like 11, 12, 13-ish. I think I quit self-harming when I was like, probably like 13. So it was like middle school time that was going on.
Yeah.
Didn't really have friends at school. Like I had a few off and on. So I went to the internet to find friends. People were mean to me on there too.
Mm-hmm.
So like I had, no matter where I went, people were like just not being nice to me.
Wow.
And like I had already such horrible self-esteem, hated myself. Like you were talking about your friend who loved mirrors. I would literally intentionally not look into mirrors. I would walk past them and I would like intentionally not look in them because I thought I was like the fattest, ugliest creature ever. It was like, you know me now, so you're like probably like, what? Like I was way different. Started to get better as I was like going into high school, but I still really struggled with a lot of insecurity and still had like depression and stuff. I went on antidepressants when I was like 16, I think. I met a guy online when I was 14. It was long distance. We actually stayed together for 3 years. We visited each other back and forth. This is actually one of the craziest stories that I've ever experienced. We were together from the ages of 14 to 17. He lived across the country, but we still visited each other.
Yeah.
Like, luckily, both of our parents were like, they realized it was like a real person. It wasn't like a weirdo like trying to catch each other or whatever. But we were really young, which made it probably a little more
scandalous,
difficult. Yeah, maybe. But 2 years and 8 months into the relationship, he started ignoring me on Valentine's Day. And it ended up lasting a month. And 2 weeks after Valentine's Day was my birthday, so he was also ignoring me on my birthday.
Oh my God.
And like throughout this entire month, like I was like doing everything I could to try to get a hold of him. And he lived in another state, so I couldn't just go to his house and be like, dude, what's going on? Like, there's nothing I could do.
Yeah.
I could barely eat without feeling like I was throwing up, like I was losing weight. I was like so, what's the word? Tormented. I was so tormented by this. Like the person I love, who I'd been with for several years, just like ghosted me out of nowhere. And I had no idea why or what was going on. Um, he had his dad message my mom on my birthday to tell me that he was breaking up with me, but my mom waited till the day after to tell me because she didn't want to tell me on my birthday. Horrible meltdowns. Like it was just terrible. He finally started talking to me after a month of this going on, and he was like super emotionally abusive after that, which he was not like before.
Weird.
Some switch flipped, and like he was like a totally different person, and he pretty much told me every horrible thing you could imagine, called me pretty much every name in the book, and like totally tore me down in like every imaginable way. I still went out there to go see him again after that, because I was like so codependent and young. Like I had just turned 17, I think, when that was going on. But whatever he told his parents when he was ignoring me made them hate me, so I wasn't allowed to stay with them. Wow. So I stayed with somebody else, like a mutual friend we had. They ended up kicking me out. Actually before that, I stayed in a house of like the dude I was dating, his friends, dad's, whatever. And I ended up finding out one of the dudes living there was a rapist. So I'm like, I'm not gonna stay there.
Oh my God.
So I stayed there one night, and then I was like, no. So then I stayed with that mutual friend, got kicked out. So had to go stay at a homeless shelter for a few nights.
Oh my God.
And like I was alone at 17, like in a new city, all the way across the country. Like I don't know what's gonna happen. Like this could be a really bad situation. I could get killed, raped, like who knows? And like homeless shelters are known for like being like you don't know. Like you hope you find a good one. Thank God I found a good one. Like the people who worked there were amazing. I was 17, so since I wasn't 18 yet, I stayed at the like kids one. So thank God, because who knows what the adults one could have been like. And eventually they were like, okay, you can't stay here forever. So I found an acquaintance of an acquaintance of an acquaintance or something. So I basically had to stay with strangers after that. And stayed with them for a while. Thank God, they were amazing. Like, there were so many things that happened that like could have turned into something really bad. Like going to homeless shelters, staying with strangers, like
yeah, where were your parents during all of this?
They were like, you should come home.
Yeah.
And I was like waiting it out. Eventually I did decide to come home early. And I told the guy I was dating that I was gonna go back home early, and he wasn't there when I flew back home. He didn't meet me at the airport. But like the whole time I was there, he was like being abusive, and like it was like already a horrible situation. Like, and by the way, I have like, it's been 10 years since that. I just recently healed from a lot of the stuff that he told me and called me. And I still have chronic pain 10 years later that I think is from that torment.
Yeah.
Like going through like such horrible mental and emotional torment can affect your body, and
the body keeps the score.
The book. I haven't read it, but
it will make you cry.
I know it's about that.
I cried the first chapter. It was I'm working my way through it, and it's rough.
I need to read it. Because I told a massage therapist about that, and she told me to read that. And
but it is true. I mean, while you're talking, two previous guests that I had, they have this company. There's multiple companies like this in St. Louis. This one's called 3 Degrees. And they do contrast therapy. So it's breath work, cold plunge, sauna.
Mm.
And when you do all that, there's a lot of relief that you get from a lot of this trauma that's just held in your body. I mean, honestly, even just like a cold plunge alone, you first go into a cold plunge if you're brave enough. And you're just sitting there and you're like, yeah, I did the thing. But then when you realize that you need to stay in there for like another 3 minutes, when I tell you that you panic and your body just all releases all these things and all these like things pop up in your mind, it's a very like scary / healing process. something I highly, highly recommend doing at least once if you've never done it.
Yeah, I did some inner healing sessions with like some women from my church and went through a lot of the stuff I'm telling you now, and like obviously very emotional at the time, and I thought I was like mostly healed from it already, but I was like bawling my eyes out. I'm like, why am I still crying about this? Like I forgive him. Like it's been 10 years. Like I think so much better of myself now. I'm like, why am I crying? And I had more healing from it after that, and I was like, I didn't even know that like I had so much more to go, I guess.
Do you enjoy reading?
I'm not the biggest reader, but
Okay.
if it's the right book that I really resonate with, yes.
Okay, the reason why I ask is my friend who has not come on here yet, her name is Angela, and she's awesome. And she does all kinds of mindfulness type of events.
Nice.
That's her whole business. She's a therapist. She does all these things. So she has this self-development book club. And the book that we're reading right now is The Self-Love Experiment. And I think this is on par with what we're talking about.
Can you send me that later?
I totally will.
I should check it out.
Yeah. And one thing it talks about that, like, you know, it's interesting. Sometimes you read things or you listen to things and you're like, it's not telling you anything you didn't already kind of know. But the way it was said, your mental space when you hear it, it really changes everything, right? And so one thing it talks about is like true inner happiness is when you feel inner peace. And a guest that I've coming on here, he shared that this really profound thing that his therapist asked him, where especially when you're a really kind person, you're always giving to others, or you're projecting what you hope would come. And I think a lot of women, specifically in relationships, will endure certain abuses.
Yeah.
Because maybe it brings about certain unresolved traumas and insecurities, and we feel, even though it's a terrible situation, no one should be hearing these things, it almost affirms what our deepest fears are. And we're like, well, of course I should be in this situation because I don't deserve better. And he's just saying what is already true.
That's what I thought too. Like,
yeah,
after that, it was like probably pretty soon after that whole situation. Which by the way, I told you I flew home early.
Mm-hmm.
He broke up with me again, like right after I got back home. And even though like the first time he did it, I was so distraught and like I thought it was like the end of the world. The second time, after like going through all that, like the crazy situation in Portland, Oregon, is where all that happened. I cried a little bit and then it was okay. I was like, wait, I'm okay. And like, things just started to get better from there.
It's a powerful moment.
I never thought I would get to that point. I was like, I thought my life was over without him, but I feel okay.
I mean, that is true resilience there. And I think that speaks to the power of the human heart and soul, where you can hit rock bottom, feel like it can't get better. And then there's something, some spark, something inside you that's like, I'm going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay. The worst has happened. And for some reason, there's something in me that believes that I will be okay.
I think because it had been from the point he started ignoring me to when he broke up with me the second time, it was like 5 months. So it was like 5 months of abuse, which is not much time compared to some people. Like some people can go through it for years, but I guess for me it was long enough that I was like kind of fed up with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was to the point like, because like I kept telling myself, and I even told a counselor that I went to after that, like, maybe I deserve it. Like, he's just telling me how he really feels. Like, that's just the truth or whatever. And the therapist was like, girl, you're being abused. But like, I refused to believe it. Because I was like, oh, he's just telling the truth. So how is that abuse or whatever?
Because if you don't love yourself, you can't recognize abuse.
And I believed everything he said. So I was just like, oh, it's just the truth or whatever. So
self-love is so, so important. And hurt people,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mhm.
I feel like some of the most dangerous people are people with low self-esteem
Yeah.
because they project that onto others, and instead of working on themselves, they'll
I was
belittle
ta-
everyone
I
around
was
them.
talking to my best friend about this literally last night.
Yeah.
People who go through something really traumatic or like they're abused or something, they either become an abuser themselves or they take it and like
Heal.
get better.
Yeah, and heal others.
And I've seen people go both ways, and I hope I'm going the good direction. Like,
You are.
I try to take what I went through to help people. But yeah, like okay, I'm getting into like true crime stuff. I know, typical girl, right? We like the true crime stuff.
We do.
But like I more recently started getting into it. Do you ever watch Ray William Johnson?
No.
He's been like a big YouTuber for a long time, but now he tells like true crime stories with like videos, and he's such a good storyteller that's kind of what first got me hooked into it. And like I think a lot of those people who commit horrible crimes went through stuff themselves. Like something has messed them up.
Totally.
So
there's a book called The Lucifer Effect that talks about that, where it's like, are there certain people that are born with more evil characteristics and traits and are more drawn towards this lifestyle?
Mhm.
Or did something happen to make them evil? It's the age-old question, right?
That's a good question.
Right? It's not so simple. It's a whole psychology book. It's pretty deep. I have to finish reading it, but it's a little
That's
dark.
fascinating.
It's a little dark.
Because I wonder that stuff too. I'm like,
yeah.
The way I am, I'm like, it's like nature and nurture. It's like how much of
was
each.
affected.
Like I know both play a role, but like certain things about me, I'm like, why am I like that?
Right.
What did that?
Now, whether it's a friendship, a career, a romantic relationship, I think sometimes we all get also caught up in this hustle culture of like, oh, well, we just got to go through this challenging stuff right now and then we'll get to the good stuff later.
Yeah.
Or you saw potential, so you're like, it's going to be amazing. What you have to reframe your mind. This was the advice that my friend told me recently, which was, are you happy? Right here, right now, is this making you happy? It's such a simple question, and yet it is so complicated to answer, but yet it's also really not. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I think also like a lot of times people get into a romantic relationship specifically because they don't want to be alone.
Yeah.
Right?
Unfortunately, that's very common.
Very common. But do they make you happy?
Yeah. Clearly that guy wasn't making me happy at that point. But what made it so hard was he was so great before, and it was like something just like flipped out of nowhere. And like I'm not gonna act like I'm totally innocent. Like I made mistakes. I didn't treat him right plenty of times. But it was just so weird how it was like
good.
It was like a total 180. It wasn't a gradual thing. So I don't know. I'm still like, and I forgive him. I don't think he forgives me because he found me on Facebook a couple years ago and was like making negative comments on my posts. And I'm like, I was nice back to him and then he stopped. So I think he was like a little bit convicted. Maybe. I don't know. But I genuinely hope he's doing well.
Yeah, that's what you have to do. You have to send them light, but don't engage and move on.
And I would be his friend if he wanted to, but I don't think he wants to.
Yeah.
But that's whatever.
That's big of you.
Thank you.
That's really big of you.
Thank you.
And going on the note that you mentioned earlier about how like when people go through traumatic things in their life, they either turn into an abuser or a healer, if you will. So I know when we had our initial coffee to talk about this, you said a part of what you see for your future also is empowering others through your story.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you'd like to empower.
Yeah. I guess the main thing is like I don't want pity. I don't want people to feel bad for me. Like the reason I tell these stories, and okay, I do get a little bit of satisfaction out of seeing people's jaws drop when I tell them the crazy story, but not for pity, but for comic effect. Okay. I like humor, I like dark humor, whatever, but like I don't want pity for like what I've been through or whatever. But I want to share the story so that people who are going through the same thing or something similar can like look, she's been here and now she's like doing all these really cool things. So that's possible for me too.
Yeah.
And I always, even before I went through some of that stuff, I wanted to inspire people. Like it was just like, kind of like you said, like a moral obligation. Like it was just something that had a grip on my soul where I'm like, that's something I have to do. Someday I'm gonna find some way to like inspire people and help them. So I love sharing the stories. Yes, to shock people because it's funny, but also I really want to help people and show them that no matter what they were going through, because like when I was going through all that stuff, I did not see a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm like, I'm gonna be in this position forever. Like our thoughts and feelings can be so deceiving and dangerous. Like I wish people could like be in the mindset I was in at that time for like 2 minutes and like just see how like gripped I was with that, what I thought was reality. And like look at me now, like I have friends, I have a boyfriend, I have like a successful career, and not to act like I've made it or anything, like there's still way more things I want to do, but like I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, you're in a great place.
Like, and compared to where I was when I was younger, like I'm doing amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I want people to see that, and if they're in a really dark place where they're depressed, suicidal, self-harming, whatever, it's like maybe there is a light at the end of the tunnel for me, because I don't feel it right now, but neither did she.
Right.
But then there was, so maybe there's one for me too.
My mom's amazing, and like one of the things that she did for me when I was little and I was bullied, because she couldn't stop the bullying, unfortunately, you can't stop it, but she would show me people, successful adults, leaders who had hard lives.
Yeah.
And she said the most special people go through the hardest challenges because it helps form them, you know?
Yeah.
So we wouldn't wish this on anyone, but if you're currently going through this right now, you're special. And stick with it, because you will make it.
You know how I was talking about that band Dayseeker earlier? His dad died of cancer. His mom's like a drug addict. Like all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And now he's like in this successful band making like the best music ever.
Yeah.
And has a daughter he's obsessed with. Yeah.
Turning your pain into purpose is really powerful.
And I think that's one of the reasons I connect with their music so much. Like there's so much power and emotion, and like you can't listen to it without like feeling it, you know?
Totally. This has been so great. We've covered so many
know,
topics.
right?
But while we're here, I want to make sure that we like really give you the space to talk about everything that's on your heart. So is there any other area that we haven't touched that you want to share with us?
One of the things the main thing that got me out of depression was finding God. I'm surprised I didn't mention that already.
You have mentioned your faith sprinkled throughout.
Yeah.
So
and that was kind of like that was like my springboard for kind of getting better from a lot of different things. Like I used to be vegan, I quit veganism, I changed a lot of my views and stuff. I started to learn how to overcome like depression and anxiety, because at that point I had been dealing with it for like 11 years.
Yeah. And
I was so tired of it. And like one of the things I had to do was decide that I wanted to get better more than I wanted pity. And like depression is addictive. It's like a drug.
Interesting.
And you like even today I'll like feel sad and I'll listen to sad music.
Where we feed it.
Yeah, like I'm sad, I'm gonna listen to like emo music and stuff.
Yeah.
Which in a way it like kind of makes me feel better, but like is it really helping you? But I got to the point I wanted to get better more than I wanted attention and pity and all of the good things that come with it. and started listening to a lot of Joyce Meyer. She talks a lot about like mental health and like how she overcame all kinds of crazy stuff she's been through. And I started like listening to videos about how to rewire your brain to think more positively, because I was such a negative thinker. And like, you know, they talked about like the neural pathways and how it's like a field. It's like the more you think about it, it's like a car driving through a field over and over again. So you have to create more neural pathways and intentionally think about something positive to make those thoughts more easier to think.
Yeah.
And like, so I was locked in. I was like, I'm gonna do whatever I have to do to make this happen and to beat these things, because I was so depressed. It was like a dark cloud that was just like following me everywhere for like 11 years straight. And I would have little moments of like joy or happiness, but then it was gone. So it was like, this has been going on for so long. I'm so tired of it. And so I did all those things. I put so much like energy into it, and it actually didn't take that long. Like, I thought it was going to be a really long journey, which I was willing to do it if that's what I had to do. But it wasn't that long. It didn't take that long. And like, there was a moment I'm like, I don't have depression anymore.
That's so powerful.
And that was another thing. I was like, I never thought I would be able to beat it, because I had taken antidepressants, gone to counseling, go for a walk, write in a journal, whatever, like all the stuff, and like nothing helped more than that much. But I did it, and I want other people to be able to see that they can do it too. And not to say that I don't have hard times. I feel depressed sometimes, like everyone does, but it's not the chronic, all the time.
Yeah.
Like on your back, no matter what type thing. So
it is possible.
Yeah. And I didn't think it was for me. Like, I remember one time thinking, I'm like, it was like when I was still depressed before that moment happened or whatever. I was like, I'm never going to beat this. And even if I have years of hardcore, intense therapy, I might get this much better. That's what I thought.
You know, I could feel that way when that's all you've ever known for a long time as well.
Yeah.
It's like this elusive thing called joy. Everyone's journey out of depression or defining joy in general is going to be different. But there's so many people who I've talked to, and even my own experiences, where it totally is possible. And it is interesting talking about it, because like, as you were saying that, I was thinking, like, even just from a scientific perspective, right? Like, smiling versus frowning, you use more muscles to smile than you do to frown. It takes more effort.
Yeah.
But if you ever notice, if you consciously try to smile more and be happy, you're going to be smiling all the time, and you won't even have to think about it after a while. It's a practice.
Yeah.
But eventually it becomes part of who you are, right?
It's kind of like what I was saying about like forcing yourself to think new thoughts.
Right.
Like, you have to force it, because if there's this indent in the ground signifying like the depressed thought, that's easier to drive through than just like grass that hasn't been driven through yet.
Yeah.
So that was the imagery that some of the videos I was watching gave me, and I'm like, it clicked. I was like, that makes sense.
Yeah, don't you love the click?
And it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just because you've always known something and maybe that's been your experience doesn't mean you can't have new experiences. All beginnings are hard.
Yeah.
But it's a struggle muscle. And as long as you keep working that, you'll get there.
It's like working out.
Totally. Same thing.
Yeah, go to BioFit.
Not the plug. But and you know, and it's so powerful. There's so many ways that you can have your joy, and you can choose joy, and it is important to feel your feelings and have boundaries within yourself of like, okay, I'm only going to be sad for this long, and then I need to have some joy in my life, right? I think that should be a goal. Every day there should be something of joy that you do, so that the depression and the sadness doesn't completely take over.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I struggle with that sometimes because I get into emotional ruts and cycles, and like I'll just get into it and like stay there, and like logically I know that's not the way to do it, but when you get to a certain point it's so but yeah, finding those things that can like pull you out of it even just for a little bit helps a lot.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
Totally. This has been so great.
Yeah, I agree.
I have this tradition at the end of every episode. So this whole podcast is based on this Hebrew quote, which is Eze Hulacham Halamei Mikol Adam, which means one who is wise is one who learns from everyone. And we have learned a lot from you. You have so much depth and so much to share. And I know we really just brushed the surface of like everything you have to offer, but hopefully this will bring a lot of people over to you and your page so they can get to know you more. But what's one last little nugget, life lesson, or quotable quote that you want to leave us with?
So I was thinking about that when you said we were going to do this, and there was really only one main thing that came to mind, and that's basically the idea that no matter where you're at, even if you don't think you can get out of it, you can. Like, no matter how dark of a place you're in, even if you don't see it, there's still a light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that's kind of been the theme of like a lot of the stuff we talked about, but I think that's my summary of like what I'm about as far as like that stuff goes.
Yeah.
So,
and whether it's like just challenging situations in your life, friendships, work, romantic relationships, I don't know where I got this concept from, and I don't know if I'm brilliant and I just came up with it myself, or if like I heard it and I just like, I can't remember who the source was, but there is this analogy that I keep telling myself that helps me when I'm struggling, which is I'm in my planting season. So right now, maybe I don't see the fruits of my labor, and it might seem dark, and it might seem like the efforts are doing nothing.
Yeah.
But you're right, there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. The fruits, the plants, they will come. So just keep doing it. Consistency wins. We've seen that both firsthand with our careers. So
yeah,
it's true. Consistency wins.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like what you said about like some people who've been through the hardest things end up being really successful.
And leaders.
Like, politics aside, like Elon Musk, for example. Like, I don't know if you know much about his past. Like, I think he was like abused by one or both of his parents. I don't remember. Now he's like a billionaire or something.
Yeah.
Like, whether you like his politics or not, just that idea of like where he came from versus like, what is he, like the richest person in the world or something now? Like one
He's
of them
up there.
at least. Like,
he's up there.
You never know like where you can get to, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm really into Kabbalah, and the teacher that I learned from, David Guillaume, he brings up Elon Musk a lot. And
Really?
it was before I got all political, right? Just in general,
Right.
as an example of what he's accomplished.
Yeah.
And he said he's like a master manifester in the sense that like he doesn't see boundaries and laws of logic. He'll just be like, if someone says, if he has like a group of lawyers who say, oh, well, you can't colonize Mars or something like that, right?
He'll be like, watch me.
He'll be like, well, can't we just change the laws? Like, why? What's with these limitations? Like,
that's so funny.
can you imagine having that mindset where it's like if someone says, no, but here's the reason why you can't, and you're like, well, just change it.
I need to be more like that. Like, I feel like I am in some ways, but like, I feel like I let too many things hold me back sometimes.
Totally normal.
So,
but
I need to be like,
but we could do that,
fuck
right?
it. Why am I letting it hold me back?
That's
like
yeah.
I've done all these things already. Why not do this thing too?
That's why Kabbalah resonates with me so much, because it talks about how like every desire you have, every good idea, every vision you have of the best version of yourself, totally attainable. The only thing holding you back is you and your limiting beliefs and your negativity.
And that's where I'm at with music. Like, I want to be a singer, really, is like the main thing.
Yeah.
And I was in a band for a very short time. We played one show, and basically we played one show, and then it was me and the guy I was dating at the time, and then like 3 other people. The 3 other people like took me and my boyfriend at the time off the page and like basically hijacked the Facebook page and used it to bully me. Like they wrote all kinds of horrible stuff about how, oh, Nikki's the worst singer in the world, blah blah blah. Like they literally just used it to bully me, and that, along with probably some other things too, kind of made it hard for me to feel comfortable like letting people hear my singing voice and stuff.
Yeah.
Because that was really hard.
And singing is so personal. I feel like for me, if people sing around me, like just in general, when you're happy, you kind of sing to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the greatest compliment when someone sings around you, because that means they feel safe.
Yeah.
It's our soul.
Yeah. And
so to be insulted and like to hurt someone, like uncalled for. Everyone has their own taste. There's so many famous singers who people couldn't stand their voice, and now look at them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I've like played around, like I have some friends who have studios and they've like let me use their studios and I played around, and actually I guess I really only used one friend's studio so far, but I do have 2. But anyway, one of them, they were like, oh yeah, you're pretty good, like blah blah blah. And then I was for some reason rapping came up, and I was like, oh, I can rap. And so he pulled up some songs that I actually knew the raps to, and they were like, holy shit, you're really good at that. Because like I practiced doing like really fast raps, and they were like, what? They're like, and he was like, we can like make you a career out of this. Like he was like had all these ideas. I was like, maybe we're onto something with that.
No, honestly, I'm a big proponent of like, I like lifting people up, and I'm a 10xer. So you tell me your dreams and I will go on a whole business plan of what you can do and how you can take this, right? But I'm also just such a big believer that when you love something so much as a consumer, there's only so long you can do it without becoming a creator.
Yeah.
And you're already a creator. So you already know what you can do, right? You've been through the journey, you know how to apply it.
And I still have a lot of work to do. Like I'm not the best singer, but like
it's an art and it's a craft, and you can work in it and get better.
I feel like if I work on it, I'm a very emotional person. Like I feel like just once I figure out how to do it, it can be so good.
Yeah.
And I've like so much music I've listened to for years and years and years, even decades. And I'm like, I've learned so much. I have so many emotions to get out. Like, I could do something so good.
You can. And I'm telling you, that burning desire and passion that I see in you, it's so rare. And it's your moral obligation to make it a reality.
Thank you for that push. I need that.
It's true. You have to. You have to make it a reality. And also, another little Kabbalah plug, because I'm obsessed. It says that the fulfillment comes before the desire. So if you have a desire for something, that means that on some form, you are supposed to have it. When and how it's going to happen, we get to watch how fate lets that unfold.
Right.
But you just got to show up, start making those moves, and that's when those opportunities start rolling out. But if you love something that much, you got to do it.
Yeah.
Life's too short.
I've been going to I went to my first concert when I was like 7, but I've like gone to so many since then, and I just see them on the stage and I'm like, that's gotta be me someday. It has to.
Do it.
Like I want it so bad.
Do it. And you know something? Like I think another thing that holds people back from doing what they love is they're afraid that whatever area they're going into is super saturated, right?
Which it is. But
it is.
I'm not worried about that personally, because first of all, my lifelong obsession with music, and like like my connections. I'm such a networker. I have so many connections. I'm friends with a lot of people who are in music. Like I'll like come up with like a guitar riff in my head. So if I have like the right people around me, I'm like, okay, play something that goes like do-do-do-do. Like it's in here and in here. So like You just have to put it out.
Totally. Because the thing is, every industry to some extent is saturated, but you are uniquely you for a reason, and your people will find you. And and you know something, like, people need uniqueness in this world, right? Like, how exciting is it as a music lover to discover something new, to discover something that resonates with you?
Mhm.
We're always on the hunt for something new.
Yeah.
And that could be you. That will be you.
Have you ever heard of the singer Lights?
Mm-mm.
She's been one of my favorites for many years. One of my absolute favorites. Top 2, honestly. She sort of has like an electronic pop type style, and like each album has been a little bit different, but her first album, The Listening, was like really chill and like kind of dreamy.
Yeah.
And like I feel like, because I'm like, I have like
Like
a
that
higher
vibe.
pitched voice, like lighter a little bit, like whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can make that kind of music.
I could see doing like folklore kind of
my
music.
voice, like I feel like my voice kind of fits that.
Yeah.
But like I also really like metalcore, and like I want to learn to scream because I love that kind of stuff too, and that gets out so much emotion and so passionate, and I have so much emotion that I want to get out. So I'm like,
I see it.
I want to do it all.
Why not? Like Kelly Clarkson, I think, is a perfect example of someone who can hit every genre. She's so freaking talented. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Don't limit yourself. If
Yeah.
you love it, do it.
Falling in Reverse and Sleep Token are 2 bands who do a lot of different genres. And like Sleep Token will do like 10 genres in one song, and it's like, and it all sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's possible. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
You're gonna do it for sure.
Thank you.
So how can we, my audience, how can we support you? Where can we find you?
So I'm Nikki Serenity. You can find me under Nikki Serenity on like all social media. I'm on pretty much everything. My main ones are facebook.com/Nikki Serenity ST. Instagram is Nikki Serenity Artist. I have a Facebook group called Nikki Serenity Fans. TikTok is Nikki Serenity. Pretty much everything else, just look up my name, you'll find me. So.
And I'll list all the links in the bio as well.
Thank you.
It'll be great. And this way people are following you and connecting with you as you get more into this music.
Yeah.
It's going to get people. And see, that's the thing. This will hold you accountable. You put it out into the ether.
True.
And now you just gotta work towards it. I'm sure there's a lot of people who will be watching this, and they're gonna, energy doesn't lie. Okay. So like, they're gonna see what I saw. They're gonna feel what I felt. And they're gonna be like, I knew her when. I saw that first interview. Oh, let's go. This is so great. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was great. I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, this was a pleasure. Thank you for reaching out. I'm so
Yeah,
glad.
of course.
Well, this has been another episode that has been so inspiring and so amazing. And yeah, every conversation that I have, it's just builds on the fact that I'm so glad I'm doing what I'm doing. So thank you for helping my dream be a reality.
Yeah, no, I love what you're doing too. I was scrolling through like a lot of your like Instagram videos, and like, she gets some cool people out here. I like this.
Yeah. Yeah. And if anyone's listening and I don't know, they want to be a guest or they feel like they don't have a story and they're not interesting, you are. You absolutely are. People tend to not realize how interesting they are. And it's my job as podcast host to ask the right questions and to make you interesting. Just to leave off, one of my favorite quotes is, if you think someone's boring, they're not, you are. Conversations in art.
I like that. I especially like that because I remember when someone called me boring and it upset me so much.
It would upset anybody.
And now I'm like, everyone else thinks I'm interesting.
Right, exactly, because it's a reflection of the conversation, you know?
Yeah.
If they're going to bring you out. It's just how it is. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for listening or watching. And if you're not already watching, the video is on Spotify and YouTube. And if you're not already following and subscribing, what are you doing with your life? Subscribe and follow, please. And please share with a friend. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Have a great week. Let's get it. Let's go.